S-Rank Jutsu sits at the very top of the 6 classification tiers, and it is reserved for techniques that operate at the level of Elite, Jonin, and Kage level. What makes S-Rank distinct from everything below it is not just raw power. It is that almost every technique in this category belongs to one person, and one person only. So today we are going through all 24 of them we've seen in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden. Number 1. Creation Rebirth. Tsunade's technique that tends to get described in terms of what it does to the body, which is fair enough. The accelerated cellular regeneration, the wounds closing mid-battle, the sheer physical impossibility of watching someone survive things that should not be survivable. But there is a more interesting way to think about it, which is in terms of what it costs and what Tsunade understood about that cost when she developed it. She is not cheating death so much as she is borrowing against it. Every cell division her body accelerates through in the heat of battle is one fewer division she has left over the course of her natural life, and she has always known this. Number 2. Dead Demon Consuming Seal. What separates the Dead Demon Consuming Seal from most other forbidden techniques is that it does not leave any ambiguity about the exchange being made. The user calls upon the Shinigami, a death god in the most literal sense that phrase can be applied, and the Shinigami reaches through them to tear out the soul of a target, sealing it away in its own stomach forever. The user's soul follows. There is no loophole, no workaround, no version of this technique where the person who performs it walks away afterward. Both Minato Namikaze and Hiruzen Sarutobi used it. Number 3. Performance of 100 puppets. The general limit for puppet users, and it is considered extraordinary to reach it, is 10 puppets operated simultaneously. Sasori controlled 100. And the reason he could do this is not simply that he had more chakra or more focus than other puppet masters, though both of those things were probably true. The more foundational reason is that he had, over the course of his life, fundamentally altered his relationship to the distinction between himself and his puppets. His own body was a puppet, hollowed out, preserved, retrofitted with mechanisms and weapons, which meant that the boundary other puppet users had to maintain between the controller and the controlled had effectively dissolved for him. He was not a person operating puppets from a safe distance. He was one of them, coordinating the others. Number 4. Living Corpse Reincarnation. This is Orochimaru's answer to the problem of mortality, and it is a more unsettling solution than most because of how casually it treats the body as something disposable. The technique allows him to transfer his soul entirely into a new host, vacating his current body before it fails him and taking up residence in another person's. There is no healing involved. No cheating death in the conventional sense, just a deliberate relocation of the self from one vessel to the next, repeated as many times as necessary. What makes it philosophically interesting is that it requires a very specific worldview to develop in the first place. The conviction that identity lives entirely in the soul, and that the body carrying it is, at any given moment, just the current container. Number 5. Flying Thunder God Technique. The reason the Flying Thunder God Technique is so difficult to discuss without resorting to superlatives, Minato placed his seals everywhere. On kunai he threw into a battlefield, on people he wanted to protect, on locations he anticipated needing to reach, and then, when the moment came, he was simply there, not moving toward there, already there, in the space between one moment and the next. The Yellow Flash was not a title given to him because he was quick. It was given because from the perspective of everyone who ever fought him, there was no movement to perceive at all, only the light and then the consequence. Number 6. Lightning Cutter. Kakashi developed the Lightning Cutter, sometimes called Chidori in its less refined form, as a technique that concentrates a tremendous density of lightning-natured chakra into a single hand, producing enough focused force to cut through almost anything. And the sound it makes is a distinctive part of the experience, a sharp, layered crackling that has been compared to the noise of 1,000 birds, which is where one of its names originates. What is interesting about it as a technique, though, is that Kakashi himself acknowledged its primary design flaw almost immediately after developing it. In order to deliver it, the user has to commit to a straight-line charge at considerable speed, which drastically narrows the field of vision and eliminates the possibility of last-minute adjustments. Number 7. Phantom Dragon. 9 Consuming Seals. The Akatsuki's defining ritual is not a combat technique in any conventional sense. Now, the Phantom Dragon. 9 Consuming Seals requires all 9 members to be present, spread across an enormous geographic area, their chakra linked and channeling together toward a single sustained process that takes days to complete. What it does over the course of those days is extract a tailed beast from its Jinchuriki, slowly and thoroughly, in a way that is fatal to the Jinchuriki and results in the beast being sealed within the Gedo statue. Yet the technique is relentless and mechanical rather than dramatic, And that quality is actually part of what makes it so unsettling to think about. It does not require confrontation or struggle in the way most powerful jutsu do. It simply proceeds. The outcome is not something you fight against so much as something that eventually arrives, which is a different kind of terror. Number 8. Yin Seal Release. The Yin Seal is less a technique than it is a long preparation for one. Yin Tsunade spent years, day after day, in the ordinary intervals between everything else, accumulating chakra within the seal on her forehead, compressing more and more of it into that single point until the stored amount reached levels that could not be achieved in any shorter time frame. The release is the moment when all of that patient accumulation becomes available at once, flooding her system and providing the energy substrate for creation rebirth and everything else she does in her most demanding fights. Number 9. Rasenshuriken. The reason the Rasenshuriken was considered impossible before Naruto achieved it is not that the concept was unclear. Everyone understood what it would mean to add wind-natured chakra to a Rasengan and give it a rotating, bladed form, but that the physical process of shaping wind chakra that finally was thought to require more precision than any hand could manage without destroying itself in the attempt. The technique, when it works, produces an effect that operates on a cellular scale rather than a structural one. The wind chakra disrupts the target's chakra network at the level of individual pathways, causing damage that medical ninjutsu cannot address because the problem is too small and too pervasive to treat conventionally. In its earliest uses, it also damaged Naruto's arm significantly every time he threw it. He threw it anyway, which is probably the most honest summary of his relationship with personal risk that the series ever produces. Number 10. Summoning Impure World Reincarnation. Edo Tensei in its original Japanese. Kita's a technique whose most interesting quality is how thoroughly it was condemned by the person who created it. Tobirama Senju developed it and subsequently described it as something that should not have been made. And then it passed through Orochimaru and then Kabuto into hands that had none of Tobirama's apparent reluctance. The technique restores the dead to fully functional bodies using a living sacrifice and a sample of the target's DNA, and the result is not a copy or a shadow of the original, but the actual person, with their actual abilities restored and operational. They do not feel pain in any way that limits them. Conventional killing cannot stop them. They can be returned again and again regardless of what is done to their bodies. The only thing that reverses the technique is the caster choosing to reverse it, which is a design feature that turns every revived individual into a hostage held by whoever is holding the hand signs. Number 11. Kirin. Sasuke's technique that works by exploiting the distinction between chakra-generated lightning and actual atmospheric lightning, and the distinction matters enormously in practice. Most lightning-nature jutsu involve converting chakra into electrical force, which is powerful but subject to the same speed limitations as any other chakra technique. Kirin begins differently. Sasuke uses fire techniques to heat the air above a battlefield until real storm clouds accumulate, like drawing real lightning from the atmosphere, and then guides that natural lightning downward with a minimal chakra expenditure. Because the lightning itself is not chakra, because it is the actual phenomenon, it moves at the actual speed of a lightning bolt, which no reactive defense can meaningfully address. He used this against Itachi during their final encounter, and was genuinely surprised to find that Itachi survived it. The fact that Itachi survived it is looked at from one angle, an almost more remarkable data point than the technique itself. Number 12. 8 Branches Technique. Orochimaru's entire presence in the series is built around the idea of a particular kind of intelligence. Patient, calculating, always several steps removed from anything as crude as a direct confrontation. He schemes. He accumulates leverage. He treats the world as a long game in which he is always holding cards he has not shown yet. The 8 Branches technique is what he looks like when all of that is set aside, and it is jarring in a way that no other transformation in the series quite is because of the contrast involved. This is a technique that converts him into a massive 8-headed serpent, each head capable of independent action. The whole thing radiating a killing intent, so concentrated it registers physically on the people nearby. There is no strategy here, no patience, no carefully constructed position. There is just the oldest, most direct form of threat available. And the fact that this is what Orochimaru looks like underneath everything else says something about him that none of his scheming ever quite manages to. Number 13. The Chikamatsu Collection of 10 Puppets. Sasori's 100 puppets represent a kind of power through overwhelming quantity, an approach that is, in its own way, coherent and even elegant. Chiyo's 10 puppets are something different. They are the original works of Manzamon Chikamatsu, the first puppet user to ever exist within this world, And they were designed not as individual tools, but as a unified system. 10 pieces that were always meant to work together, built by one person's hand, with one integrated vision of how they would move and interact and cover each other's ranges. Chio spent her life studying them. Using them in her final battle against Sasori was not simply a matter of deploying a powerful weapon, and it was a person making complete in a single fight, a lifetime of preparation and devotion that had no other suitable occasion remaining. The puppets were always going to be used like this eventually, and just took the right moment. Number 14. One's Own Life Reincarnation. Of all the techniques on this list, One's Own Life Reincarnation is perhaps the one that depends least on its mechanical properties for its impact, and most on the specific circumstances of its use. And what it does is transfer the user's remaining life force into another person, healing that person completely at the cost of the user's life. Chio used it to restore Gaara after his tailed beast was extracted, in a moment that had not been set up by any particular emotional arc between them. She did not know Gaara well, she was old and tired, and the logic of the choice was less about affection than about something more diffuse and harder to name. She had done harm in her life. She knew it, and this was available to her as a way of answering that. Number 15. Tailed Beast Ball. The Tailed Beast Ball is one of those techniques whose description sounds almost academic until you try to hold its scale in mind for a moment. It begins with a precise mixture of positive white chakra and negative black chakra. The ratio has to be 8 parts to 2, and getting it wrong means a premature detonation that harms the user. Compressed into a sphere and then released as a concentrated beam capable of reshaping the terrain it passes through. Every tailed beast can produce one. The variation between them is primarily a matter of magnitude. The amount of chakra a tailed beast can pour into the technique scales with the beast's overall power. Number 16. Water Prison Shark Dance Technique. The particular genius of Kisame's Water Prison Shark Dance is that it solves several different problems with a single decision. By encasing himself and his target inside a large dome of water, Kisame eliminates every advantage a conventional shinobi might have over him, while simultaneously activating every advantage he has over them. In open air, a capable opponent can use the terrain, can create distance, can call for assistance. Inside the dome, the terrain is water. Distance is irrelevant to someone who swims the way Kisame does, and assistance from outside is effectively blocked. He moves through water the way other people move through open space. He does not tire in the way that a human body tires when submerged and struggling. The technique is not a flashy finishing move. It is a method for making a complex, multivariable fight into a simple one, with terms that only work in his favor. Number 17. Reverse 4 Symbol Seal. This seal is Danzo Shimura's final contingency, a sealing technique that only activates upon the user's death. 4 symbols expand outward from the body, forming a large black sphere that pulls everything within range inward and seals it permanently inside the user's corpse. Danzo had it prepared across his chest well in advance, which says a lot about how he operated, always accounting for the worst outcome before it arrived. He attempted it against Sasuke in their final fight, but could not complete it in time. The technique worked exactly as designed. The situation just didn't. Number 18. Spirit Transformation Technique. This technique belongs to Dan Kato, Tsunade's lover who died during the Second Shinobi World War, and it is one of the more unusual S-rank techniques on this list because of how it operates on a level that most ninjutsu cannot interact with at all. It allows the user to detach their soul from their body entirely, becoming a living spirit with conscious control over where they go and what they do in that form. In that state, the user can possess a target, suppress their soul from within and kill them, or simply take over their actions. It can also transfer chakra or communicate across any distance, and it will always reach its intended target regardless of where they are. The only reliable counter is trapping the user inside a barrier before the technique activates. Number 19. Creation. Rebirth Strength of 100 Technique. Thid is the complete, unified form of everything the Yin Seal was built toward, and what it represents for Tsunade specifically is the moment when all the separate components of her approach to combat, the stored chakra, the regenerative capacity, the physical strength that has always been extraordinary even without enhancement, become a single coherent system, rather than a collection of individual tools. In this state, she is not simply harder to kill than she usually is. She is operating at a level of integration between offense and defense and medical capacity that no other shinobi has achieved. The technique is her life's work expressed as a fighting state, and it holds up as both. Kino number 20. Super Mini-Tailed Beast Ball. The logic behind a miniaturized tailed beast ball is, when you follow it through, actually more interesting than the logic behind simply making the standard one larger. A full-scale tailed beast ball is an area effect technique. It destroys what is in its path regardless of whether that discrimination is useful or necessary. A miniaturized version Constructed from the same fundamental mixture of positive and negative chakra but compressed to a fraction of the standard size, becomes something precise enough to use in close quarters against a specific target. The power-to-accuracy ratio shifts considerably when you shrink it. Naruto developed the ability to use it in his Tailed Beast mode. Number 21. Continuous Tailed Beast Balls. Where the standard Tailed Beast Ball is a single moment of concentrated destructive force, the continuous version is an argument made through repetition. The same devastating technique delivered in sequence, each one landing before the target has had enough time to assess and respond to the previous one. Number 22. Strength of 100 Seals. When Sakura Haruno releases the strength of 100 seals during the 4th Shinobi World War, it lands differently than most power revelations in the series, but her position in the story's understanding of what she is. She stops being defined primarily by her relationship to Tsunade or by what she learned from her, and becomes instead someone who built something of her own, using what she was given as a starting point rather than a ceiling. Number 23. Night Guy. The 8. Inner gates are a technique path built on a simple and brutal premise. The body has natural limiters on how much chakra can flow through it at any given time. Night Guy is the technique he uses in that state, a single kick delivered at speeds that generate visible heat distortion from friction with the air, the force of it taking a distinctive dragon-shaped form as it moves. It damaged Madara. That is the sentence that matters. Madara, at that point in the war, Aj was essentially beyond being hurt by anything that existed in the world. Night Guy hurt him, and the cost was almost everything Guy had left. Number 24. Super-tailed beast Rasenshuriken. This, in some sense, the most straightforward technique on this list to describe and also the most difficult to really account for. It combines the wind-natured cellular disruption of the Rasenshuriken, a technique he was told could not be done, that he achieved anyway and continued refining, with the fundamental destructive force of a tailed beast ball, scaled to a size that reflects the full measure of his relationship with Kurama, rather than any partial version of it. The technique does not exist because he found a clever solution to a difficult problem. It exists because he spent his entire life accumulating the specific combination of things that would make it possible, without ever knowing that this particular combination was where it was all heading. That is probably the most honest way to describe what it is.